It was a calm, quiet night in the city center. The streetlights cast long shadows on the empty sidewalks, and the neon signs of closed shops flickered in the cool evening air. Samuel Carter, a tall, confident black man in his late 40s, walked down the street with a sense of calm authority. He had spent years in the courtroom making tough decisions and upholding the law. His dark blue suit was tailored and sharp, a sign of his professionalism and experience. Tonight, however, Samuel felt a bit worn out after a long day. He decided to stop by his favorite corner cafe to pick up some dinner. One small comfort he looked forward to at the end of a stressful day. He parked his sleek black sedan by the curb and stepped into the warm, inviting space of the cafe. The scent of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air. The barista behind the counter greeted him with a warm smile. Samuel was a regular here, and there was an unspoken friendship between him and the staff. They knew him well, a kind man who never demanded special treatment, even though he held an important position in the community. He placed his order, exchanged a few pleasantries, and within minutes, he was walking out with a brown paper bag filled with hot food. The delicious aroma filled the night air as Samuel paused for a moment, taking in the comforting scent. He unlocked his car, slid into the driver's seat, and sighed, allowing himself a rare moment of relaxation. He was looking forward to a quiet meal at home. But just as he started the engine, flashing red and blue lights lit up his rearview mirror. The sudden glare cut through the peaceful night, and Samuel blinked in surprise. A police patrol car had pulled up behind him, blocking his exit. Two officers stepped out of the car, both white, both looking serious. The first officer was short and stocky, with a square jaw and blonde hair. The second officer was tall and thin, standing back with his arms crossed and a cold, calculating look on his face. The shorter officer approached Samuel's window, his posture stiff and aggressive. He leaned in, attempting to appear friendly, but his voice carried a tone of suspicion. "Good evening, sir. Mind telling us what you're doing here at this hour?" His eyes moved, up and down, scanning Samuel's suit as if it didn't fit the image he had of someone who might be causing trouble. Samuel took a deep breath, keeping his tone even. "I just picked up some dinner. I'm heading home now," he replied, his words polite but firm. Despite his calm demeanor, there was an underlying tension in the air. He could feel it, an unspoken challenge hanging between them. The taller officer let out a mocking laugh, sharing a look with his partner. "Heading home, huh? Maybe we should check your ID before you go anywhere," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Samuel felt a spark of irritation, but he kept his face neutral. Slowly, he reached for his wallet, moving with deliberate care. He knew how easily a simple action could be misinterpreted. The shorter officer noticed Samuel's restraint, and his expression hardened. He shifted his hand to his belt, fingers hovering near his flashlight, as if preparing for an escalation. "Step out of the car, sir. We need to make sure everything's in order," the officer ordered, his voice sharp. Samuel paused, his hand still on his wallet. He looked up and met the officer's gaze, his eyes steady and unyielding. In that moment, something shifted. This wasn't a suspicious person they could push around. This was a judge, a man who knew the law as well, if not better, than they did. The night seemed to grow colder as tension thickened between them. Samuel slowly handed over his driver's license, watching as the officer barely glanced at it before looking back at him with a scrutinizing glare. "You seem awfully calm for someone being stopped by the police," the officer sneered. "Almost like you've got something to hide." "I'm simply following your instructions," Samuel said, his voice calm and controlled. "There's no reason for me to be concerned." The taller officer stifled a laugh. "No reason to be concerned? Maybe you're hiding something," he said, stepping closer, his posture now openly confrontational. By now, a small crowd had started to gather on the sidewalk, drawn by the unusual scene. Some people watched from a distance, looking uneasy, while others inched closer, their curiosity mixed with concern. A young man in a tracksuit pulled out his phone and began recording, sensing that this encounter could escalate. Seeing the growing crowd, the shorter officer seemed to become more aggressive. "Are you going to comply? Or do we need to take you out of the car ourselves?" he snapped, stepping forward with a threatening edge in his voice. Samuel took a deep breath, still maintaining his composure. He glanced at the crowd, noticing the worried expressions on their faces. He could feel the weight of their silent support. Without saying a word, he decided it was time to reveal his true identity. He reached in his jacket and pulled out a small badge. Holding it up, he met the officer's eyes directly. "I am a judge," Samuel said quietly, but his voice carried a heavy weight of authority. The officers froze, their smug expressions melting away. The realization hit them like a punch. They had made a serious mistake. The crowd, sensing the shift in power, began to murmur. Just then, a senior officer, a sergeant, arrived at the scene. He took one look at Samuel's badge and immediately understood. His face tightened with controlled anger as he turned to his officers. "Do you two even know who you're dealing with?" he asked, his voice laced with disappointment. The two officers looked at each other, their faces pale with shock and embarrassment. They had been so caught up in their prejudice that they hadn't taken a moment to consider who Samuel might be. Samuel stepped out of the car, his expression calm but serious. He looked at the officers and spoke in a firm voice. "When you judge someone based on their appearance, you destroy the trust people have in you and the entire system you represent. Today, you judged a judge. Tomorrow, it could be someone else who can't defend their rights as easily." The officers stood with their heads lowered, visibly ashamed. The sergeant nodded in agreement, his face somber. "You both will undergo retraining starting tomorrow," he said sternly. "This behavior is unacceptable." Samuel gave a small nod and turned back to his car. He had made his point. He could have demanded more, but instead, he chose to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. As he drove away, the crowd slowly dispersed, their expressions a mix of relief and respect. This story serves as a reminder that respect and fairness must be the foundation of true justice. No one should be judged by their appearance, and those in power should always remember their responsibility to uphold the law, not abuse it.